Avast, my ratbags! It's Jay Plays Games with the Atlas news you need to know. Today, I've got all the information coming live and direct for you. Well, not live. It's not really live. It's a video. I fucked it up already. It didn't take too long. And now I've descended into Irish. Irish pirate, sort I am. But yes, hello, it's ratbags. It's Jay Plays Games. I am Jack Sparrow. I think I'll make a pretty good Jack Sparrow, to be fair. Atlas has gave us a bunch of information today in the form of an interview with PC Gamer. I've also got another brand new screenshot we're going to be talking about and just generally talking about Atlas and what it offers. So if you want to know more about some of the creatures, how the Hydra is going to have different elemental attacks, also how the servers may work, a little bit more detail, I've got all that covered. We're going to go over the PC Gaming news that came from this month's article. So stick with me, make sure you like that video, and let's go. Okay, so if you don't know, obviously Atlas was meant to launch today, but the developers announced a delay for the brand new MMO until the 19th. PC Gamer didn't get the memo because they went with their month's or December's cover story. So it's on the cover story. You can buy the magazine if you want to keep a copy for yourself. It doesn't have loads more information, but it does have a little bit. So we're going to go through it for sure. I'm going to give you all the information you need to know. There are some few interesting bits. Obviously, you can see here about the map, how big compared to Ark the map is. It's pretty damn huge. It is pretty huge. We're going to talk a little bit how that's going to go over. We've obviously got some concept art as well for the mermaid. And as you've seen from the thumbnail, I've combined a little bit of concept art there. You will not be able to ride around on them cannons. I'm going to explain that in a little bit as well. But loads of information as well about the creature here. You can see a little snapshot of the sail Hydra. So I've pulled out the best bits for you. I'm not going to literally go over every single part wording of this article. I'm going to just pull out the best bits. So some small bits to understand is that just like tribes in Ark, there's going to be something called companies, and this is basically where you're going to make up your people that are going to sail the seas with you. You can have as many people in the company as you want, I do believe, and within these companies you're going to be able to set laws to govern behaviour in particular ways, but that's not going to happen straight away, not certainly at launch. When developers say stuff's coming in a few months' time, you have to always take that with a pinch of salt. So if you're expecting to maybe go around and setting up empires straight away, it's probably not going to be that much in the game just yet. The bare bones will probably most likely be the islands and exploring, and some of this government stuff that they're going to be doing is certainly not going to come for a good few months. It's also interesting as well that this whole article refers not to their brand new company Grapeshot, but to Wildcard. But anyway, so you will be able to set taxes in the areas. If you don't know that, that's something I've gone over before. However, the full feature list is far longer. According to Jeremy Stieglitz, the creator of Ark and now the creator of Atlas, the goal is to make a living, breathing, persistent survival world that is one world for all the players and not many copies of the world, and have that world be about the rise and fall of player-run empires, drawing a lot of inspirations from games like EVE Online. So remember, this Atlas game is mostly going to be 1,200 times larger than the size of Ark, and it's going to have 40,000 concurrent players available. A little bit more information here is that there will be different servers for North America and Europe. So it does look like it's going to be region locked, which is be a real shame because there are lots of content creators that I like and I would love to maybe done something with them, but it looks like I'm going to have to stick to Europe. So it's probably just me and Phrosonis sailing the high seas together. Now, it's not been confirmed they're region locked, but I've been in the Discord and that seems to be consensus that a lot of people are saying it will be region locked. We will confirm that with more information as we come close to launch. And also, you do know now that PvP is going to be separate from PvE, so if you don't want to be raided, pillaged, then you will be able to manage on your own on a PvE server, and you are going to be able to rent your own server. The Trado, the server hosts for Ark, are going to be doing exactly the same thing for Atlas. So if you have a huge community, and you can do it, you could probably have your whole community playing Atlas with you. Imagine like the biggest YouTubers out there that have played Ark in the past and now they're going to be trying this. I'm sure they could fill servers filled with subscribers to go on it. I will be running an Atlas server, but not just yet. I want to see how the game plays out and see if I like it. And obviously if I don't like it, then I won't be running it. So when they went for this interview, they only really got to see how it would work with a studio full of people. So there was only about 13, 14 people here. Supposedly, Wildcard has hired extra infrastructure engineers so that the devs can add more area to the in-game play space if it's needed. I'm going to go over what it's like to actually steer some of the boats in a second, but I do want to go over more about what happens when you die. This is brand new information. Dying doesn't take you out of the battle entirely, as you can respawn on one of the ship's bed. Leveling up a ship can increase the number of beds it holds, but you'll still need to consider things like cooldown timers and the fact that you can't fast travel your items to a location, just your character. So that returns from Ark. You weren't allowed to move anything if you swapped from bed to bed. You basically only took yourself and none of your items. But that's brand new, that each ship will only have a certain amount of beds. So you will not be able to literally just flood your ship with loads of beds. The beds are going to be a limited amount. So you can't have a ship that has 100 beds and 100 players sitting on that one ship, I guess, or respawning on that one ship. There will be a limit. It's funny here that even the interview says a bug on the build we're playing on means we can't use beds, so I end up taking over a dev's character after mine is killed by a cannonball. Now, we do know that you're going to be able to repair your boats if they take damage. It says here they're taking on damage, water, and you have to pull a repair hammer out. There's a mini game of sorts which lets you repair the ship faster. Click to start a repair and again to stop a moving cursor in the highlighted section of a bar. It moves quickly and I run out of metal before I master the system. So that's pretty interesting how that's going to work out. I guess, you know, maybe you'll be able to level up your repair ability on the boat and maybe the bar moves quicker or maybe it takes less resources. Don't know exactly how that's going to work, but it seems pretty basic, but something different from just like Sea of Thieves where you literally just stand there and press the button and hold it until you've run out your resources and you repaired your boat. You are going to have to do a tiny little bit of action with this. They also talk about how it works with these treasure maps. So in PvE action, a map piece is washed ashore in a bottle and shows a piece of land, treasure buried at the traditional X. You've got a map outline to the islands, you set sail, so just like Sea of Thieves, when you reach the island you'll need the map bearer to get you to the treasure spot. So it doesn't look like it's shared with companies or other players. Whoever picks up the map is the only one that can see where the X is. You'll need to subdue the army of the dams, don't forget weapons and ammo, dig up your beauty, it gets shared out, so consider thinning the crowd a little. And that is really interesting. It will be a case of other people will be able to come and take the loot. So I'm guessing on PvP servers you could literally follow people going for treasure maps and basically hold them up and take the treasure as they're about to open it up. It does say here that the map might also be rotated slightly, so there's a light visual puzzle element. It also says that when you get a treasure map that makes you go further away, you will get better treasure for it. So it's going to be dynamically changing depending on where you are and what type of map it is. Damage will take effect on your boats even if you're not in a fight. Gradually while you're at sea, the boats will sustain damage. So much like when you've built your base in Ark, you do have to repair it on official servers eventually. And that looks like it's going to be the same thing with your ships. There's a little bit more information about what to expect with NPCs and how you can recruit them, although loads of this has been covered already. But the ghost ships known as the Damned, they're the ones where you're going to be able to get some NPCs from, but you still need to have gold. It's not just a case of rescuing them. When you go onto these ghost ships and you try rescuing them, you will still need cash to pay them because they're going to be freelancers. It does stress here though that being a pirate has its own risks when you're even in your own company or with others. That basically before you split the treasure stuff, you could possibly kill the other player so that you get more treasure. It says here for new players what you're first going to come across is a free pool. These are the parts of the map where PvP is disabled, even if you're on a PvP server. So it's going to give you a much easier start than Ark Survival Evolved did. The free ports are level capped, so after half an hour you'll head out onto a basic ship, probably a raft, seeking resources and experience. Again, a bit of a given that different biomes are going to give different resources, and so obviously if you want to progress you're going to have to go and explore other areas to get more stuff. Now there's a thing called a discovery zone which encourages players to go to new territory. When you go into a discovery zone you might find something similar to an Ark Explorer note, and it's going to give you story bits. Supposedly there's going to be 1,000 Explorer notes basically in the game at launch. To reach the highest level in the game, apparently you've got to find every single discovery zone. So you might have to go and visit every single part of the map, every landmass there is. Claiming an area takes time, and your reward is a plot of land only you can build on. Another company can try and take your land, and if you're not in the area, you'll get a notification and decide whether or not to defend it. If you're in the vicinity, they'll need to take out your players before they can start a counterclaim. So that seems very similar to Fallout 76 and the workshop ideas. What it doesn't say is what happens when you're not in the area. Is it simply a case of them just being able to claim it? Will there be a timer? Will there be defences that you'll be able to put in place to stop them? A real interesting thing is that Stieglitz, the creator, goes around showing him lots of things. So I'm going to talk about the creatures in a minute, but it does show a Cyclops, which is new, a vitamin system, which we knew about, skill trees, which is part and parcel of an MMO. Now, MMO does mean massive online multiplayer, or massive multiplayer online game. But that can be anything it can be. It is going to be a survival game with the MMO elements. But normally what sets an MMO apart is the fact that you've usually got special abilities, more tiers, more skills, and you have to take specialist roles to really be part of that. Now, they don't actually see it here, but apparently the writer of this article gets an email saying he's got details of plans for system of magic tech involving blueprints for airships and submersibles from a now vanished golden age. Now, not a lot of people liked tech, or some people didn't like tech from Ark. Tech was pretty much laser guns and rocket boosters and things like that if you've never played Ark. So it does look like magic is going to play a part in the game, and it looks like there is going to be things like the airships we've seen from the concept art, but that's a new one, that there's going to be basically submarines in the game too. One other aspect of PvP which is new is the bounties. You'll be able to place a bounty on another player in interesting ways, and you'll then be able to execute them. I think the idea is that you'll have to actually capture him, because it says here he had to put his head into a noose as part of the demonstration of a skull collection bounty. So you might know that your character is going to age, and you're going to be able to pass on your genes to your babies, and they will be able to continue your character's traits. But at launch it's only going to be cosmetic. So your character will age, but it won't have any real effect other than you'll just look like an old dried up prune. Supposedly it's going to become a proper game system, and it's going to give you buffs and debuffs as you get older. So you'll have to find a fountain of youth or risk permadeath after a few months. So literally you may only have a few months on the server with that character unless you find the fountain of youth, or you actually make sure you breed. You can raise babies up to the age of 20, at which point you should be able to swap body into them and stave off death by becoming your own progeny. That is absolutely bonkers. So literally you're going to have grown NPCs running around until a point where they're old enough, and then you just take over their body before you get too old and die. Now it does say here, and this is the bit that I think a lot of people were desperately ready to go, this game's going to be trash. Now don't blame you, it says learnings from Ark, particularly mistakes made with Ark, will be important for Wildcard. The older game didn't struggle for sales, but it did have a volatile early access journey. Particular flashpoints during this period were the launch of paid DLC in early access and an abrupt doubling in price at the end of the early access. This time, however, Wildcard intends to communicate pricing information well in advance. For example, Stieglitz makes it clear that although the game will launch at $30, it will still be a $60 prospect at full launch. He says that paid DLC is very unlikely given the way the game works in Atlas. Islands popping into existence that not everyone can access would be disruptive. He does say that they are going to be looking at microtransactions, and that's what's going to be happening, but they won't be there at launch. They're going to be there probably just before the game leaves early access, so around the 6 to 12 month mark. Well, maybe not that long before the full release. Literally in 6 months, maybe 6 months, you'll be able to buy a brand new pirate set. Really like the fact that this journalist is asking them some difficult questions and isn't just glossing over or hyping, and I hope to do the same. I know it's hard for some of you guys going, oh, how can you support this? You complain about Ark the most. And it's true, I have been very critical of Ark and Wildcard in the past. And sometimes it feels like I'm the only one, YouTuber wise, small tuber, whatever you want to call me, that does give them a lot of criticism. But I also do give them praise when they have done good things. And I have supported the game massively with all my content and keeping you guys up to date, and guides and tutorials and base tours, you name it, I've pretty much done it all in Ark. And at the end of the day, Atlas does look like it's a great idea. Ark was a great idea, and I think for the first 6 months of Ark, maybe even the first year, that was its best time. The game did get worse and worse, and decisions that were made after that ended up being horrible. But if I can get a good year out of Ark and it doesn't upset too many people and it doesn't piss me off too much, then I'd be quite happy. Obviously I meant Atlas there, I realise I just said Ark, but you get the idea. It doesn't excuse what they've done, and I'm not convinced they've learned any lessons from how they produced Ark. But the only way I know is if I take a look at the game and try it out for myself. Anyway, journalist here does talk about it, and he says that performances issues in Ark were a repeatable grumble, and for me and other players, so he asks about Atlas's optimization. According to Wildcard, Atlas uses a newer version of the Unreal Engine, meaning that it takes advantage of performance improvements Epic has made. Better streaming methods, said Stiglitz, they're not as much being pushed onto the client at one time, partially the nature of the world splits it up better, and then also the newer code we're using runs faster. We've learned some of the dials we can adjust on lower end systems, so thus Atlas should run better at early launch access than Ark does right now. Studio Wildcard will then continue to work on improvements. Stiglitz hopes that Atlas will marry the player-built elements of EVE Online and some of the game's iconic aspects with a moment-to-moment survival experience and a compelling sailing system. If this game works, there hopefully won't be a need for another survival game, he says, because it should in theory be able to do over time just about anything you could ever want from a first-person grounded survival game. They do stress that they're going to go and see where players want the game to go, and they will take feedback on. And that's pretty much where the interview rounds off. Now, let's talk about some new stuff. This is a Cyclops. I didn't realise this from the trailer. I thought it was just a big massive troll, or maybe I just wasn't paying attention. Maybe you guys already knew. But obviously, looking at it up close up now, I can see it is definitely the Cyclops. Some other information, it's not going to just be horses pulling the trailer. If you remember watching the trailer that I leaked 4 months ago, you'll see that there was dire bears pulling carts. Well, that's what's going to be happening. But lots of creatures are going to be able to pull carts and basically any sort of weapon type like that as long as it's got wheels. But what we have learned in the last few days is that there's going to be elephants in the game. There's going to be a moose, as this article says. I showed you guys there's going to be a tiger in the game as well. Not to mention parrots are definitely a thing. You can see it in the screenshot for one of these that there is a parrot flying in the background. And of course we've got more concept art of how the mermaids look, although I want to hold my breath on how that's actually going to pan out. So let's take a look at the actual Hydra, and there is just a tiny little add-on piece about the Hydra and what its abilities are and how you're going to contend with it. So this Hydra is not even the final boss, it's a mini boss. There are going to be gods, and that's what you're going to be summoning when you get the 9 artifacts that are in the world. You bring the 9 artifacts to the centre of the map and you'll be able to summon one of these gods, which are giant, massive, huge bosses. So the Hydras are going to be mini ones. Now it says here that each head gives a different attack. So you've got one that will give fire, one that gives lightning, one that gives gas, one that gives darkness. So it reduces your vision and any damage that you're trying to do. You won't be able to put as much damage out if you're affected by the darkness. It can also spook tamed critters. It also has a cold breath that is going to keep you encased in ice. So if you've been playing Ark Extinction, you'll get what that's like from playing with the snow owls. And it does say the lightning effect actually stuns enemies rather than does any sort of other damage. Only the heads are vulnerable to damage, so don't waste your time attacking the body. All 5 must be destroyed if you want to kill, and if you take too long, destroyed heads will grow back. So that's pretty interesting about how we're going to have new mini bosses that aren't just necessarily going to be just a sponge. We're going to have to really think about what head to take out first. It may be quite tactical, and certainly it does look like you're going to need a big massive crew to take this on, and certainly more than just some creatures. You're going to need the firepower from the cannons and stuff. Okay, let's have a little read of what they have experienced with the sailing in the game. How's it going to work? Now it says here the galleon that they're using as their demonstration would be thousands of hours of effort and experience if we were playing normally. So normally that would mean you'd have to be a bit more careful as you don't want to lose your boat that you spent thousands of hours getting. Now if that sounds like way too much, you've got to remember it is meant to be a massively multiplayer online game. The idea of playing this solo can certainly happen, but if you want to have your own galleons or these big ships, you are going to probably have to band together with other people. Maybe it's a case of unlocking blueprints before you can unlock the full boat, which would be very much similar to how Ark runs at the moment. And so you'd have to get to a certain level, which would equate to getting lots of hours in the game. And then everyone's combined hours plus the crafting and the resource gathering to make these boats does mean that would be thousands of hours. So it says here they can't just maybe ram your boat into another boat. You're going to be thinking about it properly. According to the article, A and D turn the rudder and adjust your direction, but holding shift at the same time means those buttons change the direction your sails are facing. I end up alternating between rudder and sails as I try to bring the ship into a position where my crewmate can take a shot. With the gun ports open, my crewmate takes aim, checking the cannonball's flight path on his screen before firing. Cannonballs are extremely heavy things, so you quickly learn to take into account the ship's speed and of course the ammo that makes it. You've got different commands on the actual ship. Free fire mode lets any NPC on the cannon shoot automatically when they find an enemy target, and another button acts as a universal hold fire signal. Red alert forces all NPCs to leave their stations to attack any enemy who has boarded the ship, and players can also set individual options for the NPCs. I bring our ship alongside the brigantine, struggling with the fact the wind is against us. The brigantines are the standard big ships, whereas our galleon is more of a cruise liner crossed with a battle station. We launch a volley of destruction and wonder if we've defeated the brigantine. They have not. Let's just say that we know now that friendly fire is a consideration, so it looks like they even shot and damaged their own boat with their cannons. You will be able to use the grappling hook to jump across to the other boat if you get close enough. And supposedly you can go stealth mode and jump onto another boat and take down some of the NPCs quietly, or take as many down as you could before being discovered. You can apparently use a horse to jump from one ship to another. It also talks about how he's using fire arrows, which apparently are pretty effective, but of course not when you actually fire them at your own ship by accident. They say they do manage to get the opposite boat sunk, but they have to quickly get out of there and rappel back to their other one. And you will obviously be able to kill survivors as they splash about in the water. Something small to note as well, that just like maybe in other games like Fallout 76, you can, although I hate using these as examples, you can play an accordion well, will give you decent buffs. So if you're playing musical instruments, you are going to get some sort of buff with it. So things to take from this article really are, the map does look like it is going to be a fully explorable map. Each grid that you go exploring will kind of phase you into another area, but it's all still part of that big, huge zone. I haven't got it confirmed that they're region locked, but it does sound like it with having the EU and the North American ones separate. Ships will have a limited amount of respawn points depending on how much you've upgraded that ship and what the size of the ship is. And they are going to be expensive to craft and make. There's a whole host of creatures, more normal style creatures you're used to experiencing, like cattle sort of creatures like sheep, but also the stuff like the mooses, the tigers, and of course fantasy creatures like a troll, like a cyclops or a hydra. Lots of systems won't be in play at launch, and that's certainly going to be something they're going to be looking to put in afterwards, including microtransactions for cosmetic items, and the way that you age is going to be pretty important. Can they pull this off? I'm still not convinced. Is it going to be an interesting journey? It always is. That's one thing I've said about covering Ark. There has been lots of highs, there's been lots of lows, but it has definitely been the most interesting time I've ever had doing YouTube. Lots of these systems won't be in play at the very beginning, so it maybe really will feel like Ark but meets Sea of Thieves. It won't be until the things like being able to tax other people for being on your land come into play that we start to see it more as a real true MMO rather than a survival game. So there we go, that is everything I know about Atlas from the PC Gamer article today. There's not much else going on, but I am going to keep you guys up to date. I'm going to be talking about the lore of some of the creatures you're going to be facing in the game in the next few days, and we'll also be talking about the differences and the same features from Ark Survival Evolved and the mods that created Atlas. It is borrowing heavily from some of the mods from the sponsored mod program for Ark. I want to show you guys why I think that is. So, love it, hate it. If you want more information or you just want to make a little joke in the comments section about Atlas, go ahead and do it, but I am going to be covering this game. I'm going to see how it goes, see if I like it, and if I like it I'll carry on. If it does turn out to be as bad as some of you guys think, and quietly what I think sometimes, then I will sink it to the bottom of the ocean. Either way, it's been nice to dress up, so I will see you later, ratbags. Don't forget to like and comment, and I'll try and improve my pirate accent by the time it launches on the 19th of December. Until then, farewell!